Alien here. Robin Hood. Robin Hood. Robin Hood steals from the rich, gives to the poor. The rebel fighting tyranny alongside his band of merry men on behalf of the oppressed masses. The quintessential tale for the little guy, or elite-driven narrative.
Bastard.
Join me as we dig in, exploring these and many other Robin Hood-related concepts.
Shall we take a peek at ourselves?
Fellow citizens, last night I ordered U.S. military forces to Panama. No president takes such action lightly. This morning, I want to tell you what I did and why I did.
Under the leadership of George Herbert Walker Bush, the United States war machine is in full gear. In an invasion of Panama conducted from mid-December 1989 through late January 1990, the U.S. deposes the Central American country's de facto leader, General Manuel Noriega, who notably had long-standing ties to United States intelligence agencies.
They can have all the jokes they want on television about the CIA. It's vital to the national security of the United States.
In the life of a nation, we're called upon to define who we are and what we believe.
August 1990 through February 1991, the U.S., again under the leadership of George Herbert Walker Bush, leads a coalition of 35 nations against Iraq in response to the Iraqi invasion and annexation of Kuwait, resulting in the expulsion of Iraqi military forces from Kuwait and the restoration of Kuwaiti independence. This is the political backdrop of the popular movie adaptation of the Robin Hood tale, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, starring Kevin Costner and released during the summer of your 1991. Here we see a return to the classic tale in which Robin Hood fights for his true king. One noticeable new addition to the classic tale this version adds, or rather subtracts, is the absence of Prince John, pitting Robin instead solely against the Sheriff of Nottingham and his subordinates, in place of the traditional, centralized tyrant and illegitimate authority operating with the assistance of local authorities. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, presents the lesser villain as principal antagonist, acting on his own initiative. Meanwhile, while not unusual in of itself, the version also emphasizes not only Robin Hood's role as quintessential leader of his merry band, but his upper-class status as well.
You planning to join us then, matey?
No, to lead you.
I'm not as blind as that old man over there. You're still trying to be Lord of the Manor.
Just as in the 1938 The Adventures of Robin Hood, which also depicted its protagonist as disenfranchised elite, we see Robin give a heartfelt speech about freedom.
I will make you no promises save one. That if you truly believe in your hearts that you are free, then I say we can win.
That's right. If you just believe in your heart that you are free, blah 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 blah. Yay, democracy.
With democracy, everything's possible. Without it, nothing is.
As is typical, however,
intercepted it.
what is the actual plot of the tale?
Nottingham.
No, Nottingham would not dare challenge the king.
Well, the king is not in England to be challenged, is he? While he's away, he may lose his country.
Robin fights for a king who is himself off fighting a foreign war. Robin defeats the threat to his monarch's law and order, and in the end gains control not just of his own lands, but presumably the lands of others the king will punish. And he marries his lady, who is also a member of the gentry. As always, Robin is elevated beyond his previous status, while the serfs and peasants are still left under the tyrannical grip of feudalism. But oh, if the serfs and peasants just believe they are free, they have won.
And by God, we take it back.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, is dirtier and more violent than many of its 20th century counterparts. But perhaps in this regard, it captures some of the brutality of the early ballads, such as Robin Hood and Guy of Gisborne, in which Robin cuts off the head of Guy and sticks it on his bow's end so that he can mutilate the face beyond recognition with his knife. The movie also includes the first serious black Robin Hood character. However, seriously, Morgan Freeman can be taken as a Moor with a fake, heavy Middle Eastern accent.
Salam, little one.
Did God paint you?
Did God paint me? For certain. I once heard a wise man say, there are no perfect men in this world. Only perfect intentions.
Kevin Costner's Robin, portrayed with full American accent,
unlike some other Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent,
is one of the most watered-down Robins to date.
I truly hope so.
Costner even managed to snag his first Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Actor for his role. Alan Rickman's performance as the Sheriff of Nottingham does occasionally offer some entertainment value to the movie, but lacks some of the balance of previous portrayals.
Well, at least I didn't use a spoon.
The devil is that.
Outside of establishing a staple witch character, the story also lacks innovation and cannot even keep up with other status quo Robin Hood tales. Compensating to a fair extent for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the lesser-known Robin Hood, starring Patrick Bergin and Uma Thurman,
Who's winning, Uncle?
was released the same year. And it is with this second 1991 version that we see a tale which grasps a couple of key points about what Robin Hood should be if the tale is intended to depict a character of true rebellion correctly.
Enough! There's a law! My turn!
Let him go. Why don't you and your men hunt down some little children that have been sniffing the king's flowers? You can pluck their noses off one by one.
It is with this second 1991 version of the tale in which we finally hear a key point or two about what Robin Hood's behaviors would entail if he were truly acting in rebellion against the elite rule of the land.
No, it is not. Nor do I permit this Robin Hood to ride free over my domains, turning into the people's champion and threatening to topple the whole feudal order, without which England would revert to the anarchy of former day.
Exactly.
Anarchy! 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 We believe in anarchy! We believe in anarchy! Thank you, Sir Robert, for your lesson in Saxon justice.
In this same 1991 Robin Hood, we see a return to the ethnic struggle between Normans and Saxons.
You have insulted his guest.
Behold, the glorious Normans.
But this rendition of that conflict differs from the classic tale in a number of ways.
Cutthroat to judge in the blink of an eye.
Beginning with the removal of the role of the Sheriff of Nottingham,
What's so funny?
who is replaced by the Baron Daguerre, originally a friend of Robin Hood.
I'd love to have seen his face.
I will not have my throne threatened.
While we still get the typical tyrant, Prince John,
And I will have my money.
the story does not end with the sudden appearance of King Richard and Robin's return to gentry status. Rather, Robin Hood and Daguerre are reconciled,
My friends,
and Daguerre in turn
Baron,
promises to use his power to build a future in which Saxons and Normans are treated equally under the law.
Sir Robert Hood, and to all of you.
As typical, however, no serfs or peasants are freed from the bondage of feudalism.
As of this day, you are cast outside the law.
Thus, perhaps, the film hints that Daguerre's promises are empty, devoid as they are from any such move away from centralized power.
Favor a more subtle approach.
The story, nevertheless, shows some development on par with Robin of Sherwood.
Who are you?
In terms of its politics, as it does include a slight pull away from more romanticized depictions of that same centralized power.
Do you think I'm a foolish king or a weakling?
Then again, this is all paired with classic Robin Hood degeneracy.
Now, Martin, I want you to talk to me.
What do you want me to say?
I want you to tell me exactly who you are and why your hair is dyed black.
I'm just a lusty young youth with a swagger and an eye for the girls.
1991 is also a year which saw Robin Hood video games come to the forefront in a strong way.
Marion?
Perhaps least notable of these Robin Hood video games from 1991, Robin Hood Prince of Thieves was a console game released for Nintendo Entertainment System and Game Boy, based on the Kevin Costner movie of the same name. While the game includes a few departures from the plot of the movie, the overall story remains the same. The gameplay itself was relatively unique for its time, presenting different modes of play. A standard adventuring mode depicting the action from overhead. A second mode used for one-on-one duels depicting the action from the side and featuring different controls. And a third melee mode depicting large-scale battles from an extreme overhead perspective. Released for MS-DOS, Atari ST, and Amiga, The Adventures of Robin Hood features a much different setup from Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, with its already slightly outdated isometric interface, the likes of which debuted the previous decade in God games such as Populous, designed by the infamous Peter Molyneux at Bullfrog Productions,
which made up for how incompetent I was as a coder. So,
with an action-adventure RPG style gameplay, The Adventures of Robin Hood is probably most notable for the player's ability to encounter a wide variety of different endings based on their choices throughout the game. Taking a page from Robin of Sherwood, the game also includes magic elements based on Anglo-Saxon paganism and Norse mythology, even incorporating a reference to Herne the Hunter. Like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the game features another version of the classic disenfranchised gentry, with Robin Hood, or Robin of Locksley, being robbed of his castle by the Sheriff of Nottingham, and being forced to take it back with the help of Maid Marian, Little John, Will Scarlet, and Friar Tuck. It is difficult to know how much the plot matters, however, as the game was originally designed to be set in the Wild West. And it is also not the last Robin Hood game with such Wild West origins either.
That's good. Carry on. More! 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 More!
Perhaps the most compelling of the Robin Hood games from 1991 is Conquest of the Longbow, The Legend of Robin Hood, an adventure game released for MS-DOS and later Amiga in 1992. This, at least, is the game from 1991 I actually played. Although Conquest of the Longbow features a relatively basic point-and-click interface for the player as you take on the role of Robin Hood, attempting to restore King Richard to the throne by collecting enough money to pay his ransom, it offers challenging puzzles and mini-games. Like many of the video games of its period, it relies heavily on the player's ability to read instructions and character dialogue. Not too unlike the Adventures of Robin Hood, the game also offers players a number of different endings based on their performances. Also, beware, if you do not act quickly, you can get key characters killed, being forced to reload or continue the game anyway. Again, we see the same elements of the classic tale. Robin fighting for his true king, King Richard, who has been kidnapped and is being held ransom by Leopold of Austria. And of course, if you have played the game well enough, you get the typical ending, with Robin granted a pardon in earldom and Maid Marian's hand in marriage. Instead of dismantling the system which oppresses the serf and peasant masses, he is elevated within that system and leaves it at that, with the evil Prince John standing next in line to take the throne.
The crown is poised. Only the courier can yet stop it from caressing your brow.
Is it a crime to seek justice where there is only injustice? I do not defy your laws, only the evil men who use their power for personal gain.
And how, pray tell, dear Robin, do these evil men gain their power? Through the law, the same system of governance you support through your undying loyalty to your king. Oh yes, and of course, we get suggestions of cross-dressing.
Delicate frilly things for ladies. Interesting, but of no use to me. Though it leaves me to wonder to what use the abbot puts them.
Again, following the mystic trends set by Robin of Sherwood, the game features elements of both magic and mystery, with the inclusion of powerful forest spirits, evil monastic orders, and even a Maid Marian who serves as forest priestess. A position which earns her a charge of witchcraft near the end of the game. The game also features a suave Robin Hood, ready as any good Robin Hood to jump into action. But he is also capable of much darker moods, even of drinking himself into a stupor due to deep feelings of gloom. Despite the typical political underpinnings, the game is both delightful and beautiful. Albeit a bit frustrating for the gamer of today in its complexity. Robin Hood, Men in Tights, 1993. Robin Hood, Men in Tights is a parody film which primarily pokes fun at Kevin Costner's Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Even the opening credit sequence, while only rudely matching the fiery scenes of destruction of Robin's camp in Sherwood from the actual movie, serves as perfect exaggeration of elements from its original trailer. Other obvious similarities emerge as the Robin of Men in Tights is introduced as a prisoner in Jerusalem, and through his subsequent friendship with Azim.
You very brave for a not that homeboy.
Oh, thank you.
The same character portrayed by Morgan Freeman in the original.
Can I save those people, Christian?
However, instead of traveling with Robin to England, Azim, dubbed a sneeze, entrusts his son, a Chew, an exchange student, into Robin's care.
He's in England, your country.
The sheriff, not of Nottingham this time, but of Rottingham, played by Roger Rees, is a clear homage to Alan Rickman,
Over that boy hand!
despite the latter's already rather comedic performance.
King illegal forest, two pig wild, kill in it is.
What?
Oh, dear Lord. If you see...
Even the sheriff's relationship to a witch, in this case, Latrine,
Thank you!
and not Mortiana, remains.
Kill them both.
No, wait.
Although Latrine is the sheriff's wannabe girlfriend,
Maybe if we got him drunk. Very drunk.
rather than, as revealed by later versions of Prince of Thieves, his mother.
I birthed you from this body.
The comparisons go on and on.
I can't bloody swim! I'm drowning! I'm drowning!
But the protagonist, played by Carrie Elways, is nothing like Kevin Costner's Robin of Locksley,
Do not shed blood in the house of God!
but is instead a rather conspicuous replication of Errol Flynn's Robin Hood.
Good evening.
It's him! That's Locksley!
Greetings, Your Highness.
Indeed, Men in Tights,
A present for you and your guests.
would not be the same Mel Brooks masterpiece if it were not for the additional gags imitated from the scenes and settings of The Adventures of Robin Hood, the 1938 classic. Perhaps again, when it comes to comedy and Robin Hood,
Your help?
the court jester from 1955 is not unimportant.
Question, sir.
Ah, thank you, Blinky.
Sounds like we're winning, sir.
Even though refreshingly hilarious in a period oversaturated by Robin Hood content. Robin Hood, Men in Tights features one of the most watered-down plots.
You there! I demand to know what is going on here.
Read it and weep.
With a return, by comparison to the primary film it mocks,
What over there? What are you looking at? Sire.
to the usurper John as principal villain.
News.
And what sort of news do you have? It's not bad news, is it? You know I can't take bad news.
The day started out so good. Had a good night's sleep, had a good BM.
Richard!
The proper King Richard arriving on the scene, Deus Ex Machina style, to save the day at the end of the movie.
Boy, now I'm in trouble.
Only in this case, Sean Connery is substituted for Patrick Stewart.
You are no longer worthy to wear this sacred symbol of authority.
If the comedy stylings of Mel Brooks were not enough,
Right rope.
the close of the 1990s saw the arrival of the New Adventures of Robin Hood, 1997 through 1999. The Xena Princess Warrior version of Robin Hood.
It's about time you learned your lesson.
The New Adventures of Robin Hood features some of the most ridiculous combinations of camp and cheese imaginable.
You boys might want to take up farming.
I should have taken that job in the monastery.
Attempting, as it does, to incorporate the magic of Robin of Sherwood
Witches? Here?
with the cheapest of special effects. Complete, nevertheless, with accurate medieval period costuming.
Did you remember to bring my goat herder's costume?
Starring the Will Scarlet of Robin Hood Men in Tights, Matthew Peretta. The TV series is horrendously bad enough to be occasionally enjoyable. The series even features one of my own kind.
Oh boy.
And this time, Christopher Lee plays the Good Wizard.
Another illusion?
Does it smell like one?
Take your hands off of me!
Although mostly immature in its politics,
Now she's got fire.
the series does have its moments.
Well, what do we have here? You are operating an illegal mill. Arrest them.
What are they doing wrong?
Some of the lords will not allow a peasant to own his own millstone. If he wishes to mill grain to bake bread, he must use his lord's mill. And of course, the lord takes half of everything.
That's not fair.
Oh, I agree.
It is now the turn of your 20th to 21st century. The United States House of Representatives adopts 2 articles of impeachment against President Bill Clinton.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Potential computer errors lead to the Y2K scare.
U.S. government officials say the Y2K news is good here, too. No domestic systems are showing signs of trouble.
After this weekend's final count,
The 2000 United States presidential election is accompanied by significant controversy.
We have people shuffling ballots around like they're playing cards. We have people bending ballots.
And you can see the 2 towers, a huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
Using the September 11th attacks, a new President Bush ushers in the never-ending global war on terror and its countless deaths in the Middle East.
every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
With this bloody setting in mind, your 21st century has thus far contained, as a whole, adaptations of the classic Robin Hood tale, featuring creative content just as weak as the supposed rebel hero they depict. Nevertheless, one of its more enjoyable renditions kicked off the early 2000s. Robin Hood, The Legend of Sherwood, 2002. Robin Hood, Legend of Sherwood is a stealth and team-based real-time strategy video game from Spellbound Studios, the developers of Desperados, Wanted, Dead, or Alive.
Where did that go from?
Excuse me if I don't take my hat.
Are you? Hey, you fella! I'll show you I will.
Dare to fight against me.
Brigand, take that!
Although the interface is a little clunky, the game allows you to control up to 5 different characters with their own set of weapons and skills.
What's that skiver doing? A wasp in my armor?
As you explore Sherwood Forest and the castles of Nottingham, Lincoln, York, Leicester, and Derby.
What's that skiver doing?
One unique aspect of the game is how it rewards the player, both in points and new recruits, the more lives you spare. Just be sure to try and keep Will Scarlet out of the way. He wears red for a reason.
I'm dying. No.
All in all, the game provides another delightful, playful rendition of the classic Robin Hood tale.
I'll show you
Although, on occasion, its emphasis on sparing lives
send your widow a kiss.
can accentuate the impact of death to a far greater extent than even the more violent versions of the legend.
Robin, are you injured?
It's only a scratch. Nothing to worry about. Arms, my good lord, arms.
Good evening, my child. Take a seat in nomine Patris.
The graphics are rather outdated, as goes without saying. But the art design of each location and the cartoonish characters which dwell within them are simply superb. Just skip the cutscenes.
That's enough. Go on, go away.
Topping all of its best features is the game's sound design, accentuated most especially by its unforgettable voice acting.
Turn, pretty apple.
Come here, little
pedestrian. Ha ha ha! I'm going to crush you.
Sleep well.
Do you realize I'm going to make you bite the dust? Ha! Halt, yokel! Let the little soldiers come unto me. Touché!
If your mother saw you now.
Take that! Well...
Nevertheless, despite all its positives, The Legend of Sherwood lacks any effective direction in terms of politics and the rebel nature of its protagonist.
Next!
Indeed, the game may in fact be one of the worst versions of Robin in terms of his supposed heroism.
He's fallen.
Not unlike the Robin present in Conquest of the Longbow, he does not steal from the rich to give to the poor.
What is it?
But instead steals from the rich
money.
what the rich stole from the poor through taxation, only to fund King Richard's ransom.
Where is Alan?
Here I am, Robin.
You're just in time, Alan. You will take this safe conduct signed by Prince John and disguise yourself as Longchamp. Then you will leave the town to meet us in Sherwood. There, I'll give you Richard's ransom.
You can count on me to take it to Leopold and free our good king.
Robin does occasionally stop to help those peasantry in most need. However, in the grand scheme of things, his ultimate aim, to return King Richard to his throne, can only serve to perpetuate the same situation of mistreatment. Furthermore, with all his breaking and entering, stealing, freeing of prisoners, and fleeing back off to Sherwood, You would think Robin might spend less effort sneaking into Austria with an equally small number of men to free the king from Leopold V directly.
You think you can hurt me, do you, you insect?
Regardless of the Legend of Sherwood's political mediocrities, it only gets worse. Much worse.
What's he doing?
I shouldn't have said that.
Robin Hood.
Run, Robin.
2006 through 2009.
Oh, sir, you have me.
While featuring some lighthearted moments, at least in the one episode I could stand,
One last kiss.
the BBC One TV series, Robin Hood, manages to take itself far too seriously.
And what of Robin?
With the introduction, or attempted introduction, of modern 21st century parallels to the classic tale.
In these straitened times, the sheriff has made special provision. Outlaws are classed as enemies of war, thus we can hold them without trial,
No.
and we can execute them without trial.
No, it cannot be.
We're at war.
Yes, in the Holy Land.
We will not allow violence to change our societies or our values, nor will we allow it to stop the work of this summit. We will continue our deliberations in the interests of a better world.
With the war on terror still ongoing and Western troops scattered all over the Middle East during the entirety of its time on air, Robin Hood depicts some of its characters as medieval warriors with PTSD-like symptoms.
Was it horrible? The war, what was it like?
Hodge, get dressed.
The TV series also subverts the traditions set in the 1980s and 1990s of either a black or Muslim sidekick, with the inclusion of both. A black friar tuck
England.
and a Muslim woman.
You look like a boy.
You look like a girl.
If my father is hurt,
What will you do? Cry?
In relation to this obvious progressivism,
Guy of Gisborne.
Sir, Guy of Gisborne to you.
Robin Hood himself is naturally still a member of the elite.
Well, carry on. My name is Robin, Earl of Huntingdon and Lord of this manor. Your services here are no longer required.
However, Robin is an immature playboy, appearing as far too childish to be a man who has returned from war in the Middle East.
Your eyes. And even when you look at me in anger, I feel you.
Then again, perhaps he did not fight at all. In the introductory episode,
5 years and you're still peddling the same old drivel.
it is Robin's companion Much who is shown as having the struggles of a veteran.
I'm gonna cry like a baby. For all the pain we've suffered in Palestine, the horrors we have witnessed.
Not Robin himself.
You are revolting. You know that? My master and I fought for 5 years in the Holy Land. For what? Well, so that people like you could run amok.
While taking itself seriously, the series still manages to keep staple features from the Robin Hood parodies and comedies.
Will you tolerate this injustice?
This is not cool. It's just stupid. In short, Robin Hood holds no proper balance between its lighthearted moments and its serious elements.
No, it is me.
It is difficult knowing which is supposed to be which,
How are you?
with the creative execution of action sequences in the series often looking just as bad as a fight scene from the New Adventures of Robin Hood. Robin Hood 2010. While desperately trying to come across to its audience as a period piece,
Bequeath.
has a clasp at the nape of the neck. If you take off the courtiers, find lacings at the back of the tower.
Robin Hood, starring Russell Crowe,
Thank you, Robbie.
simultaneously invents whole conflicts and battles that never existed, all accompanied with D-Day imagery. Also, on an important historical note, while it did exist in the late 12th century, the English armies did not use the Welsh-invented longbow at this point in time. Although such issues should be of no surprise, given the director Ridley Scott's track record with period pieces.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Safeguard the helpless and do no wrong. That is your oath. And that's so you remember it.
Nevertheless, as already covered, its depiction of King Richard taking an arrow to the neck is admittedly more accurate than the same event as shown in Robin and Marian.
You are a pig!
Good God.
Although not a new phenomenon,
Your next move will be your last.
the most notable aspect of Russell Crowe's Robin is his push against the monarchy, but his stance is given a much different framework.
That kings have a need of their subjects, no less than their subjects have need of kings. A dangerous idea.
While Robin is introduced as a nobody, an individual of low status, supposedly rejected by his own family, by the end of the story, we realize that he is in fact a somebody, the son of an upper-class tradesman, a friend to the gentry, a mason, no less.
Also, I'll make you a speculative mason. A speculative mason? Yes.
And here we begin to see the precise lens by which the movie offers its criticism of the monarchy, while deeply antagonistic against individual rule. This version of the tale reinforces those same values undergirding elite rule in the Western world today.
This Charter of Rights.
The supposedly democratic rule, which originated, at least in part, from the same Magna Carta, which is at the center of the plot.
There is no difference between a knight and any other man, aside from what he wears.
That's right. We're all the same. Equality, equity even. That's the message, the supposed means by which a peasant without any training can simply pick up a knight's arms and have just as much success in battle.
The laws of this land enslave people to its king. A king who demands loyalty but offers nothing in return. You build a country like you build a cathedral, from the ground up. Empower every man, and you will gain strength.
And who is every man? Mr. Mason's son, friend of the elite. And did you say cathedral?
You were against the cathedral before it was cool.
Yeah, well, I'm.
What we would ask, Your Majesty, is liberty. Liberty by law.
And there it is, not liberty, but liberty by law. But what happens when your liberty is dependent upon the law? When those same judiciaries in charge of how to apply the law make obvious malicious interpretations of that law? When the legislators in control of adding or subtracting from the law decide to ignore the very nature of that law? Or when the enforcers of the law simply ignore the law? All the liberty upon which the law is dependent can be lost in an instant.
15 days to slow the spread.
Robin Hood 2018. Although non-viewers complain about its glaring historical inaccuracies, it is obvious that Robin Hood was never intended to be a period piece at all.
Good day, good people!
Not that this is a redeeming factor. The movie does, however, reveal the culmination of the trend to present Robin Hood as some form of modern parallel, opening, as it does, with an elite Robin receiving a draft notice to fight in the Crusades. Thrust into the Crusades, we see Robin fighting in a suspiciously low-ranking position, fighting in conspicuously modern battles. And thus, the introductory voiceover.
But listen, forget history. Forget what you've seen before. Forget what you think you know.
The movie is less about the ancient past and more about the present. Even so, the audience is expected to forget recent history as well.
July 3rd.
Take, for example, the most recent American draft. Although it was widespread,
just a peaceful walk in the sun.
It nevertheless allowed a major loophole for such high-status individuals as Robin of Locksley. Even if such an elite were to be drafted, he certainly would not be thrown into battle, especially not with such a low rank. In terms of its depiction of the immediate present, however, the 2018 movie also includes political nods to the 1%.
You put the rest of us to shame with your generosity, Locksley.
The top 1% against the 1%. The top 1% to the top 1%. The top 1%.
Or
rich men getting richer. Men of power taking more power from the blood of innocents.
I'm guessing you'd be up for a little redistribution of wealth?
And so,
your bath, sire.
Where most earlier renditions point to the rightful monarchy or some small distribution of power to other elites as the solution to tyranny, along with the continued taxation and enslavement of the lower classes to the feudal system, the 2018 Robin Hood suggests a different form of enslavement as the solution. Enslavement to a system which can only take, as history has shown, and never provide, stripping everyone of most everything, all but the uppermost elite. The socialist implications are suitable, of course, for a version of the Robin Hood tale that takes place almost entirely in an urban setting, with a Robin who engages alongside the peasantry and serfs in Antifa-style conflict with the elite. A depiction complete with Molotov cocktails and riot gear. Indeed, the movie is just one bad joke. Robin Hood. Robin Hood. Robin Hood steals from the rich what was taken from the poor, only to fund the king's ransom. Robin Hood, whose presence is always accompanied by degeneracy. The rebel left fighting Prince John, the typical tyrant who rightfully inherits the Kingdom of England after the death of his brother, King John. Robin Hood, the disenfranchised elite who is always rewarded in the end with far greater social rank. Robin Hood. Perhaps once originally a tale for the low status, but adapted nevertheless for the elite.
I'll carve you yet, you peasant bastard.
Alien now.